You're listening to The Quad, a Killjoys podcast. My name is Annie.
And I'm Kris.
And I'm Stephanie. We are talking about the 6th episode of Killjoys Season 4, Baby Face Killer. While we will talk about anything and everything from that episode, there won't be any spoilers for future episodes.
So let's get started with our reviews. I thought this episode was okay. I don't know why, I just can't quite put my finger on it. I think it's because a lot of the characters are, going off in different directions at the end of the episode, and I'm like, but that doesn't seem like such a good plan, because Davin and Jack go off alone at the end, and Bree is just on the ship, and yeah, he's got Fancy in his ear, but I'm worried about him having more backup, so I was like, you guys, this doesn't seem smart. But otherwise, I don't know why Dutch is so gung-ho about training Jack to be an assassin already in day 2 of his life, but at the same time, I did like the conflict it created, because she's gonna do anything to beat the lady, but Dav's got his concerns as a father, and I did like how he brought up Dutch's Khlyen issues, so that was a good conversation. But, again, I feel like this episode left off with a lot of bits just hanging, so I'm sitting there going, okay, but the plan, guys, the plan? Anyway, so, that was my bit. What about you, Kris?
I actually really liked this episode. I like that the show is using Jack's presence as a means of exploring the main character's issues. Because as hard as it is to watch Davin confront Dutch about her history with Khlyen, I am glad that that's happening. Because their relationship has been evolving throughout the duration of the show. They're meaning Dutch and Khlyen's. But, it's always felt unresolved and far too complicated. So I appreciate that Killjoys is so interested in talking about how complicated and messed up and messy and confusing that is. 'Cause, I feel like a lot of shows kind of gloss over that sort of thing. So thank you, Killjoys, for confronting that. I don't know. I enjoyed this episode and all the messiness. Stephanie, what'd you think?
I thought this episode was pretty good. I am still skeptical about having a teenager around, that whole thing. It often doesn't go well for TV shows. I'm glad, though, he has a name now. The kid has a name. And I did like how they used him in this episode. Like you were saying, Kris, it felt like he did have a bit of his own storyline, but he was really used to bring out elements of dynamics between Davin and Dutch in particular, obviously, and we get to see Dulcea kind of reflected off of him, which is interesting too. I didn't really care for the turn that the storyline with Pip and Zeph took in this episode, but otherwise I thought there was some good stuff here. I wouldn't say it was a knock it out of the park episode for me, but I thought it was pretty good.
I agree that it's perhaps a little odd to have Zeph and Pip, go off into their own storyline with a weird story about a brain spider.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way that it's set up in this episode, now it just seems like Pip's gonna die. And the spider didn't really have much significance before this point. We thought maybe Jack was in danger for a couple of seconds. So at this point, I'm a little confused to the purpose of the storyline, and it kind of was getting a little Zeph is gonna stand by her man vibey to it, and I don't really care for that.
Yeah, I was thinking about you, Stephanie, when I was watching those scenes, and I'm like, yeah, this is okay, but, yeah, I'm like, what does the spider do? So,
Yeah. It's because the green froze, so it hasn't seemed to have done very much, but yet he was still controlled for, I'm puzzled by that. And granted, I admittedly don't really care for Pip, so I probably wasn't going to be 100% all in on this storyline anyway, but this episode in particular, I'm like, where are they going with this? I'm a little confused.
Well, because let's be honest, I think we would all prefer to watch Zeph hanging out with our main 3 Killjoys, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Zeph with a girlfriend.
We know that's what Stephanie wants. Stephanie's made that abundantly clear.
Spin-off with her Zeph and her girlfriend, so...
But even if Zeph did not have a girlfriend, yes, a lovely, gothy, ex-priesty girlfriend, for example, I would love to see Zeph hanging out more with our main cast, yes.
Yeah. Although I have to say, where was the ship that Zeph and Pip flew off on? Was still just hanging around?
Yeah, I don't entirely know where that Blackroot ship was. I knew that they had one.
I thought they lost it at one point when Lucy went off on her own. I don't know.
Yes, presumably they were flying the ships, in tandem or something.
Yeah.
But yes, not to switch subjects, but I'm switching subjects. Because okay, so to switch subjects. I'm sorry, whoever's editing. Since we've already talked about Jack, we should probably talk about how he has a name now. And even though Dulcea named him Osman Kinrit, after
that was
her
my reaction.
Apparently terrible ancestor, not surprising, Davin is like, hey, what do you want us to call you? Because again, Davin, all about autonomy and like, what is it that you want your life to be like? And so he eventually decides that he wants his name to be Jacoby. And I clutch my chest, because,
Yep.
David's face in that scene was pretty much the best thing ever.
I just love how they set that up, where the entire episode, Dutch is talking about how great the Jacobys are. She's like, you are a Jacoby. Jacoby men never let me down, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yes, that is what I want to be. It gets me, you guys.
And it was a turd, right? Because when we first see him in that scene with Dulcea, she's like, you eat like a Jacoby. And she's not terribly thrilled with that, but he gets so much positive feedback from Dutch that he decides, no, that is what I want my name to be.
Well, because as Dutch said, he's her memory nephew brother son. And I'm like, thank you, show, for acknowledging that this is very strange.
I did like that kind of fun dynamic, those bits between Dutch and Jack when they go into the peep show, and she's like, oh my god, puts her hand over his face, and then later he's like,
speaking
are
of
we
dangling
supposed to
bits.
use this? Yeah. Not that dang.
I believe Annie said hanging bits, but yes.
I'm not talking about hanging chads or anything like that. I just, referring to any of that.
Did you not hear Stephanie snicker when you said that?
I did, but I was just like, oh god, I'm just gonna keep going because, as usual, I put my foot in my mouth, so. But I did think that was, kind of the amusing bits with Dutch and her
Stop saying bits, Danny!
No, I said... Oh, God.
And he's super into bits, you guys.
I'm bits. I'm all about bits today. But I did think that was... I did love those moments where Dutch was doing the mother, nephew, brother, son, kind of mentor-ish type thing to Jack, and, when he's like, is this supposed to be used as a weapon? Holding up God knows what from the room with the bits. So I appreciated those moments. But
this season has been very kinky, I would like to point out.
Yeah.
As I was watching this episode, I was just kind of like, what set did they raid that they got all these props from?
And
at least they were approved.
Well, I'm wondering if they spent money on it for the first episode, and they're like, you know what, we're just going to keep using it. Like, we got them.
I mean, there is also that, yes.
We're just going to carry it forward.
But again, I'm just kind of like, was there some other show that filmed on the same lot? And they were like, we've got access to all this. We might as well write it in somewhere.
Does your show have a pleasure room? Ours did.
Ooh, can we shoot on there for half a day?
Yeah, the stuff with Dutch and her nephew, brother, son, it started out kind of fun and sweet. It started out kind of sexy. I got a little turned on when Dutch flipped Davin onto his back and then said, I'll take it from here, Papa. I was like, yes, you will. You can take me along from here, too.
It's the voice.
She can say anything with that voice.
I know.
She just had some particularly sultry line readings in this episode. Thank you,
It's
Hannah
true.
John Common.
I thought she looked particularly good this episode. I don't know what it was, but it's
I
all the
feel like
fighty bits.
A lot of people this episode looked really, really good. There's attractive people on this show.
It is true.
Mm-hmm. But yes, the Dutch and Jack stuff started out, well, first immediately sexy, at least in my opinion, and then it got fun. And then it
That
got
sounds so weird, though. So
I know,
weird
I'm
and
sorry.
wrong when you say
I'm
it
sorry.
like that.
Yeah.
But
He's
it
her
got-
memory nephew, brother, son.
It wasn't sexy with him, it was sexy with David.
Okay, there you go. It's important to clarify.
It can be sexy with
But
Papa
then,
anytime.
But then, like this conversation, it got weird because
Like all our conversations.
And I think this is my opinion, because you were talking, Annie, about how, like, why did Dutch go so hard on Jack immediately, is I think we see her have that flashback connection thing to Anila in the green space, and Anila is, like, injured. And Dutch experiences that injury. And I think that
that's
is
right,
partially
yeah.
why she got to her desperation point in this episode. Is she was already feeling the weight of, the lady is coming, this is huge, I have no idea what I am doing. And so she kind of falls back on, well, these are the skills that I have, I can teach this kid. This kid is important. These are the tools that I have that to maybe protect him, help him protect himself. So that was just my thought about it. Did you have thoughts about kind of Dutch's building desperation here, Kris?
Well, I think part of what's interesting, too, is that she refers to Jack as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's partially that she wants to protect him and partially that she sees him as a means to an end, which kind of echoes her own upbringing, right? Because that's sort of what Khlyen did to her. And so, I mean, they hit that aspect pretty hard this episode, that she's kind of treating Jack as she was treated as a child.
Yep.
So there's that aspect. I do think, though, that Dutch has a sense of urgency about the lady that nobody else has for a variety of reasons. You know, going into the green space, facing the lady head on, that sort of thing. I think probably the fact that she has faced her own mortality last season is probably also factoring in a way that it isn't necessarily for everybody else, or at least it doesn't feel like it is for everybody else.
You mean where she was willing to die if she killed Anila?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically going in ready to kill Anila, therefore sacrificing herself, only to realize that no, Anila's actually not the scary person. I mean, Anila's plenty scary, but really the big threat wasn't Anila, it's the lady. And now having faced the lady and, you know, all this preparation for war, it feels like everybody else is maybe... And it felt like this last season, too. It feels like everybody's less intense about it than Dutch is. Right? That's not just me, is it?
No, I think you're right.
She has a unique perspective that nobody else has. So, yeah.
Did I answer your question, Stephanie?
Yeah, and I think, and maybe this is me projecting a little bit, but I feel like, you know, Dutch is used to being very sure-footed when it comes to methods of attack, but I think here, she feels like she doesn't know what she's doing. You know, she has this kid who she knows that Anila created, but she doesn't really know why. You know, she knows that Khlyen left her clues in her memory, but she doesn't really know what it's leading to. So I feel like that could also be a factor too, just the uncertainty, the extra uncertainty of all of this for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think all she really knows is that Jack has something to do with the lady's plans. Or at least that's the way it's been presented to her. That the lady wants Jack. All this talk about something waiting for her on the outside. Thoughts, Annie?
Oh, I don't know. I think Dutch is just... Yeah, she falls back on what she knows. In terms of, oh, I'm just going to train him to be like me because he's got these abilities that even he doesn't know about. You know, when he saves her from the attack and when she's training him and everything, and, you know, everybody keeps asking him, well, how did you do this? And he's like, I don't know. So she's like, okay, this is a power that even I don't understand, but it's a potential advantage, so I need to hone his skills how I can. But, you know, at the same time, he's still a kid, and she's still not the best. She's not very objective when it comes to her motivations for training him.
Because I felt like it was significant when Jack walks in on her with the knife to the guy's face. Mm-hmm. She pauses. Like, that makes her step back and look a little bit ashamed of what she's doing. But then it's like she makes a decision. No, this is something that he needs to recognize as a reality. So I don't feel like she's necessarily... There's still some wiggle room there for her. You know, mm-hmm. We were reminded in the first episode of this season, kind of her at her darkest, right before she met Johnny. And, you know, we see that that is still a possibility for her. But I think here we see again, she's struggling against that at times. Like, I feel like there's a part of her that doesn't want to be that, but maybe still feels like it can be useful and she can tap into it when she really needs to. And right now she feels like that's her only option.
Mm-hmm. I did like how there was that echo from the first episode where she takes out her tools of the trade and says again, you know, I thought I wouldn't have to use these again.
Well, I think part of what's kind of interesting about it is going back to this whole evolving relationship that she has with Khlyen. You know, as the series started, she acknowledged, she saw that what Khlyen did when he was raising her, like, was not good. But I feel like part of what's happened is we've seen Klein's motives, and we've seen all the things that have happened that basically Khlyen thought he was preparing her for. Mm-hmm. So we've seen Dutch's view of that, and our view of that, I think, has changed a little bit and has sort of justified it in a certain way, right? Because he did train her in a way that has actually kept her alive. And he did do awful things, but also he did them for theoretically a good reason. I guess jury's still out on that, maybe. But I think the fact that she recognizes that his training has helped her survive is also serving to motivate her to expose Jack to these same horrible, horrible things. Mm-hmm. I guess is where I'm going with this. I don't know. I just appreciate that they're acknowledging that this is all very complicated and messy.
Right. And I think in that disagreement that she and Davin have, he says that thing about, you know, you were abused and I'm not going to let you repeat the cycle with my son. And so I think definitely acknowledging the fact that she's falling back on this because this is what she knows.
Right. And I appreciate that argument that they have because it's been acknowledged that the Jacoby brothers also had a not good family upbringing. Their mom seemed kind of neglectful and their father seemed abusive. So it's sort of seeing the different reactions to those childhood experiences. And I think part of what I like too about, like might not be the best word, but
appreciated.
Yes, I appreciated about the end of this episode, really the entirety of the episode, is that we see them each doing things involving Jack that are basically just bad ideas. They mean well, but also that's not a great idea. And as with past actions in past seasons, it's like when they all go off to do their own thing that they think is good for the team, it's sort of never as good as it is when they're working together.
Yeah.
It's like, don't go off on your own and make dumb decisions. It's a dumb decision.
Well, and I can kind of understand Davin's, you know, after his disagreement with Dutch, his need to want to leave the ship and go off with Jack. But at the same time, I'm like, Dav, Dutch is still the best person to protect him, even with, the means that she uses, so... Why
and
are you
Uncle
going
Johnny.
On? Yeah.
His motivation for leaving the ship felt a bit shaky to me, because he's taking him away from Johnny. He's taking them away from... I understand he had an argument with Dutch, but it's not like D'avin can't set boundaries with her. So...
Right. Dutch is not an unreasonable person.
Yeah. So I don't know. His impulsive decision to leave, it felt a bit unfounded to me. I don't really know where he was coming from with that decision.
But talking about them all reverting to patterns that they feel are kind of safe, or perhaps reliving past childhood things. I mean, D'avin, up until recently, that's been his go-to, is he leaves.
That's true. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Which Johnny reminded him of in this episode.
So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good. But it's not good in a good way. Story-wise.
I agree. It's very complicated, but I like it messy. Sometimes I like a story nice and neat, and sometimes I don't. And this show sometimes gives me both, sometimes I feel like. But that's why I like it. It's got some of the most complex writing I've seen, so... Complex bits. I'll take those.
Well, the other piece of the kind of Dutch, D'avin, and Jack storyline involved the assassin who showed up and tried to kill them for a little while, like they do. And I'm curious what y'all thought about his reaction to when Dutch said, oh, you're working for the lady, when he got very mad and got all killy-fighty. How did y'all interpret his response to her accusation?
I don't know. I always assumed he was working for the lady, but I guess he isn't?
I don't know.
I think that we are supposed to think that he is.
Okay.
I mean, nothing was confirmed or denied, so this could go either way. But I feel like we, the audience, were supposed to go, oh, he reacted badly when Dutch said that, so he probably is.
See, I kind of felt the opposite. I kind of felt like he didn't seem like a fan. But I could be completely wrong.
But can we acknowledge that he probably does actually know what she's talking about when she says the lady?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Or he could be working for her, because she got forced into it somehow or blackmailed? I don't know. I did like the concept, though, of what did they call it? The white blade? I thought that was cool. Yeah. Assassin's honor and all that. Until they get all killy-fighty, and then pretty much all bets are off.
As they do.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate whenever we get to see Dutch face down another assassin. They are good fight scenes.
Or as Johnny called him, an asshole.
But again, it just... Something about Hannah John Common, it just made her extra attractive. The killy-fighty stuff, too.
I am wondering if there's going to be more to come from that woman's face that they captured from Dutch's memory. I mean, clearly it brought this guy into their periphery. And was that maybe Khlyen's purpose? Because we've seen that Khlyen seems to know more than he really should, or he knows a lot, and he kind of puts things into motion. So was that his purpose, just to attract this guy? Or is there more to come from that?
That is a good point, because he did have that symbol tattooed on his neck. So it could be a matter of, follow the clues.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's still more going on that we don't know with that when it comes to that woman's face. But I did appreciate how Johnny, he's always keeping the important stuff in mind. He goes, she's like, are you perving through my memories, Dutch? Johnny's like, oh, your memories make my butt look great.
There was some very excellent Dutch and Johnny banter in this episode. Because I love Dutch and Johnny. I think they have great chemistry, but I do not ship them at all. I think they should be best friends forever and ever. And so, if they were my OTP and they had these, great chemistry-laden scenes, I would be chanting, kiss, 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 but they're not my OTP. So I look at my screen and I chant, hug, hug, hug. They didn't hug, but that's okay.
That's so sweet.
They're your OTBFF.
Yes, they're my
exactly.
OTBFF.
I think they're the OTBFF for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay if people ship them. It's not that I don't get it. I just don't personally. So I chant hug during their scene.
Oh, I'm going to do that. That sounds cute.
That's so sweet, Stephanie.
They love each other. They should hug a lot.
It's true.
They give each other good hugs. They look like good huggers.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've got those good arms and shoulders. There you go. Brought it back down to Pervland for you.
But I also thought Pre and Fancy had a fun dynamic in this episode. Disagreement. Okay.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I was drinking wine.
You're fine. Never apologize for that, Kris.
I mean, in honor of Pre. Bartender Pre. Yes, Pre and Fancy. An entertaining pair, and I think we've talked about this before. I just enjoy when they pair up really any characters on this show, because they're just such good interactions, because everybody's such a character. And
everybody has their own very unique viewpoint, which I like.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love seeing the threatening warlord side of Pre when he's telling the scruffy guy, oh, whatever Fancy does to you is going to be like kittens and puppies compared to what I do, or something of that nature. And I'm like, oh, Pre, your warlord side is terrible, but so attractive.
I've got to say, I kept getting distracted by his Wi-Fi cheekbones.
Oh, is that what you call them?
I mean, they look like the little Wi-Fi signal.
I didn't think
symbol.
of it
That's true.
at the time, but you're absolutely right. It did look like he had Wi-Fi cheekbones. Maybe he did. Pre has his own personal little hotspot that he can put on his face.
Well, and that's how he's communicating with Fancy. So, it's not a regular comm. It'll just get picked up on his cheekbones.
Well, maybe he connects that to his bedazzled eyebrows.
Oh, yes.
Which act as an antenna.
I think this all sounds perfectly reasonable, quite honestly. I think my favorite moment between the two of them, though, was when they were threatening the scruffy guy, and it's like, what do you want from me? This! And then they just scan his hand, and Pierre's like, you didn't have to make him think you were going to cut his hand off. Well, he didn't have to shoot me.
Question, was that the barcode scanner again?
Oh!
It might have been. I'm with you, Annie. I'm very worried about Pre. Him going in by himself it just seems like not a great idea. And it's terrifying in the rack now.
Yeah.
It's just terrifying.
Yeah, because the scene cut to him in the rack, and I'm like, don't hurt our Pre. What about Care Bear? So, yeah. But when Pre recognized he was in the rack, was that the rack symbol we saw, or the other symbol that Team Awesome Force keeps seeing?
I can't tell the difference.
It's the rack symbol.
Okay, yeah, it's what I thought, because it was all, scary and green and glowy in there, and people were kind of being tortured, so, yeah.
Oh, for sure, the lighting was
yeah.
meant to make it look extra creepy, but it was the rack symbol.
Okay.
I'm having trouble telling the difference. I'm impressed that you caught it, Kris, because I don't.
Well, you watch it on a super tiny screen, right?
It's true. I do.
Mm.
Yeah, you're doing it to yourself. I'll find you screen caps later, and we can discuss the difference.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of I enjoy the fact that I guess it's not strictly rack agents, but our team has taken over the Khlyen Armada ship, and so apparently the Khlyen or whoever have taken over the rack. They did a switcheroo.
Do we think from what looked like mutilated corpses, do you think they're trying to recreate the technology that they use to green people up that we've seen them use in the past?
I don't know. Yeah, something nefarious is going on, obviously, but yeah, I'm just waiting for all the pieces to fit.
Yeah, because we did not get really anything in the way of answers, because the scruffy guy knew nothing besides his handprint. That was all he was good for. So why do they have the kids? And what the heck are they doing with all of those mutilated bodies?
It does seem like the result of experimentation gone wrong, but yeah, we just don't know yet.
Yeah. Because it reminds me a bit of the Anila's old lab that they found back in, like, season 2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
With all the dead people in it.
I think they're trying to do Red 17 again.
Yeah.
Actually, that might be something else. I'm so confused now.
Me too. You know, one thing I had a thought. I'm like, God, I really need to give this series a rewatch from the beginning. Because all the bits are floating around in my head, and they, they get a little confused sometimes.
By all the bits.
Yeah.
So just a smidgen of Dulcea this week. She is looking a lot more like her old human self, wardrobe and hair-wise.
Oh, Dulcea, you're kind of terrible and kind of not as terrible as you were before.
Yeah, but she still reminds me that she's terrible when she's like, when Jack's hugging her and she's like, physical contact is for the poor. And I'm like, Dulcea.
But she hugged him back before she said that.
She
That's
looked
true.
emotionally affected before she said that. That was a crappy defense mechanism.
I was just like, that crushy upbringing.
But we see her exiting Utopia, going into Utopia. I guess she was exiting.
Yeah. Because the thing was she was supposed to be boarding a transport to go to Kresh.
Yeah.
And then she says, I'm not going to Kresh. Where are you going, Dulcea? Where are you going? Are you going to go find Adila?
I hope so.
I think she's going to go find her girlfriend.
There's been a paucity of girlfriends this season.
I feel like that is her intent.
The show needs
We've
more.
been bereft of green
queens.
queens. We need more.
There was something that I wanted to mention. It's actually from last episode involving Johnny. I neglected to bring it up in our previous episode discussion. But this episode, we saw Dutch getting called out for doing something kind of she shouldn't have done, which is something I appreciate about Killjoys, that when characters mess up, they have to deal with consequences. And last episode, we got to see Johnny facing the consequences of him being Khlyen. He has that little nice conversation with Zeph about how he understands if she's still mad at him, because even though it wasn't the real Johnny who was saying those hurtful things toward everybody, he understood that it was still the face of somebody that they love and trusted saying terrible things and doing terrible things, and acknowledging her right to be upset about it. It's like, thank you, show. Thank you. I feel like so often TV shows will want to very quickly move past, oh, this character was possessed or whatever, and it wasn't really their faults, and kind of just smooth those things over. So I liked that we saw Johnny being like, no, I get it. It wasn't really my choices that were in effect there, but I understand why you're still upset with me.
I mean, if anyone would understand, I feel like it would be Johnny, who was stabbed by his also sort of possessed brother.
Yep.
Yep.
Johnny gets it.
So I just wanted to say again, I really feel like Killjoys exceeds my expectations when it comes to dealing with emotional fallout and consequences of people's actions. So yay show.
I do feel like Killjoys is a very emotionally intelligent, it's a show in touch with its emotions. More so than most others.
Yeah. You guys put it so eloquently, and I'm just sitting here going, where are the bits? I don't get them. I don't understand how everything connects.
But emotional bits.
Yeah, but the emotional bits really work.
We're talking about hearts now, Annie.
Okay. I got it.
I was just kidding.
So we got recent feedback from listeners. From Nicole, she said, Killjoys is just a great show. I love that a platonic relationship between a woman and a man is the emotional center of the show. Women can be motivated by love. That's not about their being wives or girlfriends or mothers. Who'da thunk? The supporting cast is great, and I like how the writers subvert gender roles and expectations. Priya is almost stereotypically gay, until you realize he's a legit badass with a complex history. Dulcea is cutthroat and ambitious, and isn't made softer as a mother. While I could quibble over some plot points, overall it's just a really fun show that fits right in with my feminist agenda.
And then we get a short piece of feedback from Rainbird, but I love it so much. Turin plus Weege equals Tweege.
There you go, Stephanie.
That is one of the
Excellent
best ship names
friendship.
I've heard.
Maybe more? Ship name.
Oh, I totally see it as maybe more. That's just me.
And from CR Sparrow, aka Wordy Blurred, Killjoys is a versatile show that goes from slapstick humor to deep emotional arcs with ease. I love every character, in fact. The characters are the reason I love the show the most. I enjoy that they actually talk to each other, confront each other, and fight tooth and nail for each other.
Us too, as I just very wordily said.
Same.
I love the bits. Okay.
The heart bits?
The heart bits.
The heart bits. We'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode of Killjoys. You can send them to us at killjoys@askgenretv.com. We love getting voice messages, which you can send to us in a couple of ways. You can record a voice memo on your smartphone and email it to us, or call our listener voicemail line at 972-514-7223. Follow us on Twitter or Tumblr at Killjoys Podcast.
And we are currently running a giveaway. If you send us feedback, we will send you a feminist Killjoy sticker if you want one. Let us know if you want one. Maybe include your mailing address if you want. I'm pretty sure at this point we are halfway through the season. I'm pretty sure we can get everybody a sticker who wants one. If we run out of stickers, I will buy more stickers from our friends who actually gave us these stickers. You can follow them online at Fangirl Shirts. The Quad is part of the Ask Genre TV family of podcasts. To find our other podcasts about Lost Girl, Orphan Black, and other shows, visit our website, askgenretv.com.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the Quad, or maybe the green space.